Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Balzer, the Chief of the Ohio Division of Forestry. Welcome to the Division of Forestry's 2020 Virtual Open House. Thank you for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your time, and this evening is meant to be an introduction to our state forest work plans. Work plans can be found on our website, and I would encourage everyone to review the work plans, at least the ones that they're interested in commenting on, and sending us those comments and sending us your input. So we truly appreciate your interest in Ohio State Forests, and we're very much looking forward to receiving your input. So I've shared on the screen a couple of addresses, and the best plan to handle questions this evening is probably using the Q&A feature that Microsoft Teams allows. This will enable us to answer most of your questions real time, and I think that's a very easy way to do this evening. If you have lengthier and more involved comments, I would highly recommend that you email those to us, and that address is also shared there for you to review. What that does is that gives us a couple of days to take a look at those, do any research if we have to, and then provide you with a complete answer, particularly if you have a lengthier or more complicated comment or question that you want addressed. So you can ask us this evening using the Q&A feature. We'll be glad to take email comments and email questions. We'll be doing that for at least 30 days prior or after this live event tonight. And we'll be able to get questions answered that way as well. So you don't have to hurry and write down these addresses for reviewing work plans or sending in comments. We're going to post those in the Q&A section, and you have a chance to look at those this evening. Here at the beginning, I want to talk a little bit about some things that may just help set the stage for tonight's conversation. One of the things I wanted to talk about was just how the Division of Forestry has been operating during the COVID-19 pandemic. So back in March, we were asked to work from home and not come into any of the offices. And we did that for at least a month or so. And then some things began to change a little bit as they figured some new things out. But really, our offices are still not open to the public. So all of our Division of Forestry offices, including our headquarters office, are still closed to the public, and we are not substantially working in our offices. We come in often enough, a few of us do, to maintain the things that need to be done day to day. But work from home is our primary format for all of our administrative work. And we've adapted to that pretty well during the past 7 months. We're able to accomplish the vast majority of our administrative work from our homes. The difficult thing for us is that we're very field oriented as a division, and so our field operations were a much different story. It was very difficult for us to make very much headway on accomplishing our mission with all of our field staff trying to work from home. So thankfully in April, we were allowed to begin working again in the field. So our field staff is now able to work at the state forests. They're able to meet with landowners in our service forestry program, and they're able to meet and work with communities through our urban forestry program. Our forest health staff have been able to get back out into the field, accomplish the work that they need to accomplish. We're doing all of those things within the proper COVID-19 guidelines and everybody's personal comfort level, but we are meeting with landowners typically on a one-on-one basis, and other community officials also typically on a one-on-one basis. So the key thing for us, and the key thing that we're not able to do, is have large indoor meetings, workshops, educational events, and things like that. And we're able to meet outdoors in groups of 10 or less. So while the weather was good, we did a little bit of that, and that's very useful. But it's very hard to have landowner workshops and some of the other things that we traditionally do to provide educational opportunities for landowners and communities, and interested partners and stakeholders. So that's been the one thing that has not changed yet. Still no indoor meetings, and outdoor meetings have to be kept very small, and we have to maintain COVID-19 guidelines. And which is why we're having these open houses virtually. We were not really able to have open houses in our traditional format. The last thing I want to do is refresh everyone's minds about our vision and our mission at the Division of Forestry. This will help set the stage for the later conversations and questions that people might have. So what we strive for in the Division of Forestry are healthy and diverse forests that are valued for the life-sustaining benefits they provide now and forever. That's what we aspire to do at our division. Our mission has been in place for a very long time, and it's still very relevant to what we do. So we want to promote and apply management for the sustainable use of and protection of Ohio's private and public forest land. So there's a lot in there, and that mission statement, as I mentioned, has been our mission statement here at the division for a long time. It's very, very relevant to all the things that we currently do. We try to promote sustainable management with private woodland owners and others. We apply sustainable management on our own lands, and we're always interested in protecting all of the state's forest lands, both private and public, from forest health concerns, fire, and many other things that our forests here in Ohio are faced with in terms of threats. In terms of brass tacks, I wanted to talk just a little bit about how that vision and how that mission drives our day-to-day operation. So how do we develop strategies to do the things that we want to do? How do those things fit together with the mission statement and the vision statement? And then what types of goals and objectives we might have in order to measure our success in obtaining those attributes of our mission statement. So in a nutshell, what we try to focus on when we're developing strategies and we're setting our goals and objectives are, and these are sort of results oriented. These are the results we want to have through that process. We want to have productive and healthy working forests. So the key there is working forests. The Division of Forestry is mandated to produce a profitable growth of timber in the state of Ohio, and that revolves around having public and private working forests. And so that's kind of essential to our mission. But we want to do that in a very sustainable way. So we promote sustainable management of these renewable resources to make sure that the things that we're doing and the decisions and that private landowners are making, that they have solid information in order to make the best decision that they can make so that forests can be sustained and renewed throughout time. We also want to protect Ohio's diverse forest resources, and we want to make sure that we're providing every protection that we can possibly provide, and that we're managing things so that we have diversity in age classes, diversity in species composition, and all of those things, so that Ohio's forests can remain diverse. We do all of this also under the umbrella of third-party certification. So we are dual certified by the third-party certifying bodies through FSC and SFI, and that's very important to our division. We take that third-party certification very seriously, and it's a very good way for us to learn as we manage forests sustainably, and for us to understand how we're doing and how we're accomplishing that sustainable management. So that's a key part of what we do. And then I think one of the most fascinating things is that, and one of the most amazing things to me at times, is that we're able to do all of those things in terms of sustainable forest management while having a multiple use management mission. So here in the Department of Natural Resources, our division truly embraces the multiple use management. We pretty much do all of the components that are listed there on the screen. We manage for forest products, wildlife habitats, recreational opportunities, particularly recreational opportunities that are not available on a lot of other public lands in the state. We do all of this with an eye on water quality and aesthetic beauty. So I'm really quite proud of our staff and things they're able to accomplish while managing that renewable resource in a sustainable way and providing all of these other multiple use benefits to the citizens of Ohio. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to kick it over to Greg Guest next. He's going to provide us an update on some of our management planning. So Greg, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. My name is Greg Guest. I'm Assistant Chief with the Division of Forestry, and I wanted to talk about a few things that are of statewide interest. And first item I'll speak about is the Forest Action Plan. Forest Action Plan is a comprehensive plan for all forests in Ohio of all different ownership types, municipal forest, private lands, as well as all government lands. So it is an overarching document. Many of you might have come to some of the public meetings we had around the first of this year to help us improve part of that Forest Action Plan, the assessment document. And we want to thank you, anyone that came out and provided us those comments. We got a lot of meaningful inputs, and so we went forward with that document, or with that input, refined our assessments, and then developed the strategy portion of the Forest Action Plan. So that's now been developed, and it'll soon be sent to U.S. Forest Service for approval. And once it's approved, the final draft or the final document will be posted on our website. So please look for that if that's of interest to you. And again, I want to thank everybody that came out to any of those meetings we had at the first of the year. The second item to update you on is forest certification. We are dual certified, FSC and SFI certification, as Dan mentioned. This year we do have a new contractor, a certifying body for our state forest. It's Scientific Certification Systems, and they had been a subcontractor before for 10 years prior, but they are now our lead contractor in doing a certificate for both FSC and SFI. This was an odd year for us. We were set up for this to be the first full audit for a new 5-year certificate. But because of the COVID pandemic, once we got under contract, or once we got SCS under contract, we discussed our options, and because of the pandemic, we were allowed to do a 6th year of certification. So this year we did just a surveillance audit. It was a virtual audit, and that was the week of October 16th. Next year, 2021, we will do a full audit in person with contractors. It'll be about a week long, and we anticipate there being a new FSC US standard draft that we'll be audited against for the first time. So we'll be getting ready for that. Another item is our 5-year forest management plan. This is a plan that is specific to state forest land and covers the overarching strategy and management of our state forest. Our last 5-year management plan was written in 2015, and so we were due this year to have a new management plan, but really for 2 reasons. One of which being the COVID pandemic, and just some things were more difficult to do this year. But more important than that, we decided really that we wanted to get our Forest Action Plan completed first, so that we could make sure that all the work that went into that plan was applicable parts at least, were integrated into our 5-year plan. So in 2021, part of our open house presentation will be the draft 5-year management plan, as well as the work plans. Just as a review of some of the portions of the 5-year plan, is our description and resource inventory, our forest inventory in terms of volume, and our growth calculation. We'll have to update both of those items. Our desired future condition statement. Our current statement has a number of parameters in it, but it was built very heavily off the Forest Action Plan. So we anticipate that if we have a revised statement, it'll be pulling elements out of that Forest Action Plan. 2 other documents are kind of appendices to that 5-year plan. Would be our high conservation value forest assessment. Our current assessment is about 10 years old, So we're going to revamp that. And representative sample area analysis is another document. Our current document is 10 years old, so we'll be revamping that as well. So that was the end of really the items of statewide interest. So I'm going to turn it over to John Mueller, District Manager of the Northern District, and he's going to tell you about the work plans for his district this year and items in there. And after he's done with his presentation, we'll transition to questions. So please, if you have any questions and you want to go ahead and send those in, we'd appreciate it.
As Greg mentioned, my name is John Mueller. I'm the district manager for the Northern District, and just going to give a quick overview of where we are, who we are, what we have to offer in the district, and what we have to plan for the coming year. Our district stretches, as you can see, from the northwest part of the state up west of Toledo to extreme central Ohio. We generally lie north of I-70, with one exception being Willow Grove, our latest addition to the district, which lies just south of I-70 near St. Clairsville, Ohio. This slide actually it shows the different acreages, the different respective counties where each forest lies. Overall, we encompass approximately 15,000 acres in the Northern District. We have 3 staff units, one at Maumee, one at Mohican, one at Fernwood. Manager at Maumee is Don Schmenk. The manager at Mohican is Chad Sanders, and the manager at Fernwood is Will McCormick. If you have any particular questions about these specific forests, all 3 gentlemen are on the call tonight, so you can feel free to submit questions. We offer several recreational opportunities. It's just part of our multiple use management concept. We have bridle trails at Maumee, Mohican, and Harrison. We have an APV area at Maumee, which is open year round to accommodate not just APV 4-wheelers and 2-wheelers. We have 2 miles of single track. That APV area is open in the wintertime to snowmobiles as well. We have 6 miles of snowmobile trail at Mohican, but that is exclusively limited to snowmobile use. We have a mountain bike trail at Mohican State Forest, approximately 24 miles, that allows, it actually ties in with the Mohican State Park if you want to access it via the park. We have campgrounds, offer camping at Fernwood, Harrison, and Mohican. We have semi-primitive campgrounds at Fernwood and Harrison. Some of the amenities that you can expect: picnic tables, non-potable water, pit latrines at Fernwood. Harrison, a little more primitive. Mohican, 10 park and pack sites, strictly primitive camping. All camping in the district on the state forest is free of charge. However, it is first come, first serve, and we require registration. We offer 3 gun ranges, 1 at Harrison, 3 at Fernwood. 3 at Fernwood offer rifle range, handgun range, and shotgun. These ranges open 1/2 hour before sunrise and close 1/2 hour after sunset, and are open to the public on a first come, first served basis. Some of the planned activities we have for the year, generally speaking, we start with the end in mind, so to speak. With that being said, the desired future condition that Greg mentioned, including regeneration of oak and hickory forests, protection of rare and threatened species and communities, and the promotion of habitat for a diversity of forest wildlife. We've had a good fortune of receiving grants the last couple of years from 2 distinct different sources. One is the US EPA via the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and the other is the state of Ohio via the H2 Ohio program. Both programs, the main goal is to reduce the amount of nutrients that reach our waterways and ultimately reduce the amount of nutrients that reach Lake Erie. We've had an opportunity to utilize these grants to already do some habitat improvement at Maumee State Forest, and going forward, they're going to allow us to do even more in the coming years. We're proposing potentially 4 timber harvests in the district this year. You can see the one at Maumee is approximately 63 acres. Strictly timber, pine thinning, similar to what we did last year. The 2 we propose at Mohican, sort of an either or. We're not going to do both of them. We're going to prepare to have both of them prepared and choose the one that seems most appropriate at the time. This is an ongoing effort, continuation of our Restoring Native Hardwoods initiative that began a couple of years ago at Mohican. We have one hardwood sale proposed at Yellow Creek State Forest. This sale is in response to an oak wilt outbreak that is severely impacting that stand. And if you're not familiar with it, oak wilt is a phytophthora disease that spreads very readily and kills rather quickly, particularly in trees of the red oak family. And unfortunately, this stand was heavily skewed toward red oak. Along that same line, as I mentioned, we're dealing with it with oak wilt as a forest health issue, but on a much bigger picture, oak wilt has become very well established throughout the state. Probably should be considered a growing concern across the state. So it's something that we're going to be looking out for. Beech leaf disease. Something that was first discovered just a few years ago in Northeast Ohio. Unfortunately, we found out this year that it has been detected at Mohican. So ongoing efforts to detect how far spread that might be at Mohican will be undertaken. Hemlock woolly adelgid, we haven't, to my knowledge, to date, had to deal with any hemlock woolly adelgid in the Northern District. However, we have dealt with it in the Southern districts, and it's a cooperative effort to mitigate that forest health concern. That if you have any particular questions about hemlock woolly adelgid or any of these forest health concerns that we're dealing with, feel free to submit a question. And spotted lanternfly, this is probably the newest pest on our radar, so to speak, in the state of Ohio. We saw this coming from eastern Pennsylvania, kind of working its way over here, and unfortunately we was detected just last week in near Mingo Junction in Ohio, and subsequent canvassing for that insect actually gives us reason to believe that it's present at Fernwood State Forest. Prescribed fire, we're proposing 6 prescribed fires in the district, 5 of which are at Maumee. Again, speaking to our desired outcomes, particularly at Maumee, prescribed fire is done to improve the quality of a limited native prairie and oak savanna habitat that is diminishing in the area. But overall, our goal is still our hardwood seedling regeneration, particularly with oaks, and improved conditions for fire-dependent plants and ecosystem, and increased low-level browse opportunities for wildlife. The one major facility upgrade that we're proposing in the district this year is the installation of a ROMTech waterless restroom, but that will be replacing an outdated pit latrine at the Mohican Bridal Day use area, hopefully in the summer of 2021. If you want to contact me directly, my email is john.mueller@dnr.ohio.gov, or you, as mentioned before, you can submit any questions about the work plans to dnr.stateforestworkplancomments@dnrohio.gov.
Okay, thanks a lot, John. Appreciate that. So again, anybody that has any questions about the work plans or anything related, please feel free to submit a question in the Q&A. We do have one question here about the planned harvest at Mohican and Yellow Creek. So Chad Sanders, if you don't mind, could you tell us the acres and the type of harvest again proposed at Mohican?
Sure, Greg, thanks. My name's Chad Sanders. I'm manager at Mohican. We do have 2 pine plantations that we're proposing to thin in our annual work plan. This is part of the Restoring Native Hardwoods initiative. So what thinning does for us is produces the light conditions so that hardwood trees can regenerate underneath the pine. Mohican has a lot of challenges, and one of those is that we have 40% of our forests are in pine plantations. They're artificially planted. In many cases, they're not native seed source. We think we can do a better job by promoting native hardwoods here. So one of those is at the Discovery Forest. It's 40 acres. And then there's a second one proposed on the south end of the forest that's 15 acres. And those are both white pine and red pine plantations.
Okay, thanks, Chad. I'm going to ask you the same question for Yellow Creek. Will McCormick, Eastern Forest Manager.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. The proposed harvest at Yellow Creek is approximately 70 acres in size. Again, it's the prescription on that sale is in response to the oak wilt that's kind of not running rampant, but is present in the stand in that area of the forest.
Okay, could you just tell us what the impact of oak wilt is?
Sure. So that section of Yellow Creek leans really heavily to the red oak group, and so the oak wilt, it's pretty aggressive once it gets into a stand that there's a lot of red oak to spread through, and so in that area of the forest, we're getting a lot of oak wilt kill, and it's kind of starting to accelerate. So we wanted to do the harvest in order to take care of the issue.
Thanks, Will. Okay, John Mueller, I'm going to give you this question. So, question here is, what other trails we seasonally close in the division?
The APV areas, other than Maumee, are already seasonally closed. The proposal for the bridle trail closure was initially, I believe, thought to perhaps mimic that, but the feedback that we've received leads me to believe that might be altered somewhat.
So, Tom Macy, I'm going to ask you a question. So, related to oak wilt, since you're our forest health manager, could you talk about what the impact of oak wilt could be if, with the treatments that we planned at Yellow Creek? Maybe what would happen if we didn't try to treat that?
Yeah. So, you know, as Will McCormick mentioned, oak wilt is a pretty aggressive plant pathogen and disease, and when it gets into a stand, the main way it moves from tree to tree is through the root systems of the trees. So especially in a situation like we have over at Yellow Creek, where there is quite a few red oak, which is the main species that oak wilt impacts and that it kills the quickest. When you have a lot of those trees growing in close proximity, you end up having a lot of root systems that grow together, and we call that root grafting. When trees of the same species, their roots kind of connect really underground. So when the disease gets in the tree, it can move from tree to tree through those root grafts underground. And so the infestation that we discovered there recently at Yellow Creek was pretty extensive already. And, you know, you could tell there were quite a few trees that were recently killed from oak wilt. And so the way to try to manage that is to essentially, you know, somehow disconnect those root systems underground. And you also don't want to leave infected trees standing, because another way that disease can spread is overground from insects feeding in those trees. So the management is pretty heavy-handed for this disease. It makes it a really tough forest health issue to try to contain. So, you know, there's certain techniques where you're bringing in heavy equipment to, you know, physically sever those root grafts underground with plowing or trenching. There's other techniques where you can, you know, basically kill the trees in place, the buffer trees around those diseased trees, to try to kill those root systems and prevent the disease from spreading. So that's the strategy we're trying there. We're buffering around known infected trees. We've killed trees with herbicide, and then we'll go in and harvest those trees and remove the trees from the site. So it's a really difficult forest health concern to try to manage, but you know, there's been good success with this strategy that other folks have seen. I know in Wisconsin, a couple of us traveled last summer to Wisconsin for an oak wilt management workshop, and it's actually the Menominee tribal enterprises in Wisconsin have been using this technique for the last few years and having really good results. So we're hopeful we can get a handle on it there.
Great, thanks. That was a great answer. We have a question about the grants that we received, and I believe in John's presentation he referenced the grants received for the restoration activities at Maumee State Forest. So Don Schmink, could you tell us a little more about the 2 grants, some of the work that you're doing up there?
Yeah, so the first grant is through US EPA, and it's part of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, GLRI. And we've been working on some of them for, good 2-3 years now. And to sum them up, it's involved, we call them BUIs, which BUIs stand for beneficial use impairments. And US EPA wants to address certain beneficial use impairments, like, for example, one of them is loss of wildlife habitat. So we've been able to get some grant funding from them to do wildlife improvement and water quality type projects. Some of it's involved woodland enhancements, invasive work. We've done some land acquisitions where we're taking farmland and planting it to trees, or we're restoring it to wetlands, with all the big picture in mind of increasing wildlife habitat and water quality. Just that in a nutshell. And then the other grant that we most recently got was with funding with the H2 Ohio program, in which kind of a similar, just a different program, a state of Ohio program, with similar efforts. One of their primary efforts are to reduce phosphorus and other nutrients getting into Great Lakes, trying to improve water quality. So thus, we've had a land acquisition, and we are doing, some of it was farmland and some of it was woodland. So we're taking the farmland, we're restoring wetlands on it, and we're planting to trees. And then within the woodlands, we're doing invasive treatments and to improve the woodlands too. So, that's the 2 grants in a quick summary.
All right, thanks, Don. So again, I want to encourage anybody that has any questions to please submit them. We're doing the best we can to mimic our normal open house format, which is pretty informal and consists of us, explaining our work plan and asking any questions the public might have. So please submit any questions, and we'll do the best we can to answer them. We've got a follow-up question on the bridle trail closure proposal. So I'll just try to answer this. So our proposal is in each of our work plans statewide. And really the problem we identified is that a relatively small amount of use in the wet weather months of the year. We don't get a lot of use, but December, January, February, March, in that time period, small amount of use, but a disproportionate impact on some of our trails and some of our state forests. So some land managers approach that by seasonal trail closures, but it does create a strain on us to get trails back into good condition and minimize sedimentation from a relatively small amount of users. So we didn't draft a formal proposal with exact dates or exact forests or trails that would be involved, but more we're exploring the concept, so we're putting it out there for our users for any suggestions they might have, really to deal with that root issue, which is a lot of impact in the wet weather months based on a relatively small amount of use. So that's what we're trying to address. Okay, next question I'm going to give to you, Tom Macy, but related to our monitoring efforts for oak wilt. And so that was the exact question, but I'll ask you to maybe expand it a little bit and just talk about our monitoring efforts for all forest health pathogens and insects.
Yeah, so we've got several ways that we do that and monitor where oak wilt might be occurring throughout the state. First one I'll mention is we have every spring we fly in an aerial survey, and we do that with Division of Wildlife pilot and aircraft, and the point of that survey is to identify areas that might have discoloration, defoliation, or mortality of trees. And so we're mapping that from the air and then following up on the ground to determine what might be the cause of those issues. So that's one key way that we detect these. We also work pretty closely with other partners like Ohio Department of Agriculture and Ohio State University. Ohio State University has a plant pest diagnostic clinic that receives samples from folks all across the state, and they diagnose plant disease and pest issues. So we communicate with them pretty regularly to figure out where oak wilt is occurring in the state. So, and also, obviously just reports from the public, what they're seeing, diseased trees and that sort of thing, and we can follow up on those reports. And of course, within the state forest system, we've got folks working on those all the time, and we communicate closely with them on what they're seeing on state forests. So those are the main ways we're detecting it. And, we work with private landowners with technical assistance on best management practices for managing it on private land. And of course, on our state forests, we can be more active and get in there on the ground and try to be proactive in managing it.
Okay, I appreciate that. So is there anything else you want to say about other pathogens or insects we might be monitoring for? I know we're looking at a lot of things, so if you just want to give us an overview of some of those efforts.
Yeah, sure. So, some of the other key forest health issues currently ongoing, in addition to oak wilt, John mentioned a couple of them. So hemlock woolly adelgid is a non-native insect that we are on the lookout for and trying to do education and outreach to get the public looking for on hemlock trees. It has been found in several counties in the southern part of the state, but also a couple counties in the northeastern part, not within any of our northern district state forests at this time. But that's one that we're catching early, and we have some management options to control it there. We have a statewide eastern hemlock conservation plan that guides that work. John also mentioned beech leaf disease. That's another relatively new issue for American beech. So we're actively surveying across the whole state, looking for that issue, which it's still being researched what the causal agent of that disease is, but it looks like it's involves a nematode that survives within the leaves. It possibly Asian in origin. So there's still a lot to learn on that one. And then, another key disease problem that we're starting to see in different areas of the state is called eastern white pine decline, or white pine needle damage. And that one, I think, has a lot to do with the climate recently and recent weather. We've had wetter than normal growing seasons the last few years. And I think it's really allowed some fungal pathogens to impact white pine. And these are native fungal pathogens. They're not an introduced invasive diseases or anything. It's just that the environment has allowed these diseases to take hold, and it's causing a lot of discoloration and dieback in eastern white pine, especially when you have maturing, aging, overstocked white pine plantations where there's not a lot of air movement, and that foliage stays wet for a long period of time, and it allows those fungi to really take hold. So that's a concern, because there is a significant amount of white pine plantations throughout the state. So those are just a few that we're on our radar pretty heavily, and we're working a lot with.
So we got a question about the deadline. So our schedule, we've had the work plans up for a few weeks, and we anticipate reviewing all comments and making any adjustments we decide are warranted, and then making those plans final in about a month's time. So you do have plenty of time to review those plans, think about them. We can follow up with any questions you might have. But yeah, about 30 days we'll look to make them final. One thing we always say here at the Division of Forestry is we do have an open door policy. So we'd like to get as many comments and discuss these issues as we can during this period. But our managers in the field or here at Columbus are willing to talk to anybody throughout the year about any of our programs or any planned projects that we have. So, but yeah, so and it'd be good to get any comments in the next few weeks. It would be great. I want to really thank everybody that tuned in tonight and gave us a chance to discuss our work plans. And we will be making those plans final in about 30 days or so. So look for those final plans to be posted on our website. And look forward to getting any comments you might have in writing to the email address we provided. And thank you all for taking time in your evening to hear about state forest management.